One.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I'm your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. We're back again, just one day later. Why would we do such a thing? We just talked for an hour and a half with Pat Boyle about the NBA and the New York Knicks on their hot streak, even though their game's up in the air right now against Toronto on Wednesday night. And we spent about 55 minutes talking about the NFL, the New York Jets, quarterbacks, teams that are still fighting for their playoff lives, yet there's a need. There's a need to sit here today and talk with our friend, our designated hitter, Andrew Calagna, about the one thing on your mind, Andrew. What is that one thing, or maybe a couple things on your mind?
Oh my God, and it's been probably the craziest 24-hour period of baseball that I probably think like I've ever seen. Like signings and trade happens, but like it's very rare that you're in the middle of the night, you're feeding your daughter, and you're just refreshing Twitter, and you see that a free agent who has signed this mega deal with an opposing team just all of a sudden it just signs with the New York team just out of the blue. It was just wild, man. I can't believe it.
You're so flabbergasted that you actually talked about the thing that we're going to talk about in the open. That's how crazy.
No time for jokes, friend. No time for jokes.
No time for any messing around over here. The timeline of it, basically, like you kind of mentioned there, you're feeding your daughter. You're basically, is newborn still the right word? I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, she's a month old. That's still newborn.
Okay, good. I don't know my terminology yet on the baby front, but you're feeding your newborn overnight. Probably, half. This is your second kid, so you're probably half, phasing out, just kind of feed the kid, getting through what you got to get through. And you see this tweet on Twitter, and you have no one to converse with, Drew. So what was that moment like? Because obviously you're a Yankee fan. If anyone's checking in for the first time, they don't know Drew, Andrew Calagna here, Yankee fan. But as a Mets fan myself, I respect you and appreciate you as a baseball supporter, Mets supporter in general. So what went through your head when you saw this, and did you think you were getting arson judged?
Oh man, it was crazy because Heyman tweeted around 2:35 in the morning, and then it was radio silence for a while. So again, I really thought it was an arson judge to the Giants type of situation, and then like 25 minutes later, I keep refreshing, and then around like 3:00, he tweets again, but these are with quotes from Steve Cohen, because apparently Steve Cohen is he's out in Hawaii and he's on vacation, and he just like called Scott Boras up, and they were doing this deal, and he got quotes saying that it's about time that we were able to jump in. I regret not being able to jump on Carlos Correa sooner, but once I saw this opportunity, we really need to finish off this piece, and I'm really happy to get it done. And I'm just like, holy shit, this is real. And again, I start just texting you. I start texting like all of my group chats, and nobody's responding, because who would be? Who's stupid enough to be just sitting up at 2:00 in the morning, just refreshing Twitter like an idiot, like I am. So,
well, frankly, you actually just missed me. So we did the pod last night.
I saw because like your status was like from 45 minutes ago or something like that. Like was your last like tweet? I saw it from like 45 minutes before it went down. So I was like, maybe he's still up. Maybe and I sent like 7 texts in a row to the group chat. Nobody answered. I was just like, all right, this will be something really fun to wake up to. But
then so fun to wake up to that I actually didn't even see it. That's the best part. So I go to bed after me and Pat finish our pod, and I post it, whatever. It's probably like 1:45, say. I don't know. No, honestly, when I put my phone down, it was 10 after 2. So I really did just miss it.
Yeah.
So I wake up then in the morning, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this tweet, which is just funny. I wake up in the morning and see the name or the word Correa in an ESPN notification, and like literally don't even think twice about it. I don't even blink an eye. I just swipe through my phone to see whatever the hell else I got on notifications. Because in my head, Correa's a signed man. He's an accounted for man. So I don't even think twice. And nothing in my head. All of a sudden, I see that people are reacting to an Instagram story on Subway Sports Talk. I'm like, I definitely didn't post an Instagram story. What is this? Drew must have posted something. So I click on it, and that's how I learned about the Correa situation, which is hilarious that me as the only Mets fan in our group chat is the last person to find out the news about this.
In the Instagram
bad.
story of his own podcast. What
Yes.
a
And you did knock it out of the park with that story, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. It was flying through, man. Like, and I haven't gotten to sleep yet since like 2 o'clock this morning. I'm still riding the high of the whole day because, man, that there was another tweet there like, if it's really kind of silly, but if George Steinbrenner was still alive, he would have been so mad that the Aaron Judge signing and ceremony that everyone knew he was gonna get named captain today, that just basically got upstaged in like a matter of hours by the crosstown rival Mets. Like he would have been so fucking mad about that, which is is just great. Just a wild day in baseball to say the least.
Yeah, it really is true, and we've always joked in the past about the stove of baseball and the hot stove being more lukewarm than it's been hot. But this year, especially in New York, man, it has been steaming hot, and today is the perfect example. So, just some housekeeping quickly before we start breaking things down here. We're obviously going to talk about the Correa signing and the Mets and what they're looking like right now from an entire outlook, lineup, pitching rotation, etc. Obviously, then we have to touch on the New York Yankees. We haven't spoken since Rodon's been signed there, since Aaron Judge has been named captain, and this entire energy around New York baseball. I mean, I saw so many tweets today saying, how is the baseball season not starting tomorrow? Like, I'm ready to go, right? And that energy around baseball is absolutely a huge, huge win. So that's the plan for today's episode. It's not going to be a super duper long one. At least we say that now. But that's the plan. Mets, Correa, etc., as well as Judge, Rodon, Yankees, etc., and New York baseball in general. So that's the plan. And Drew, I want to start with this before you can kind of go onto your spiel here about what you're wrapping your head around with this Mets move. I love that you brought up the idea of the Yankees and their ceremony with Judge getting named captain, kind of now battling with this news around the New York Mets. And I've been brewing this all day today. I really now believe that Steve Cohen and the New York Mets push to try to be relevant and the best that they can be may be the best thing that ever happened to the New York Yankees, because it really feels like Hal Steinbrenner and this Judge situation and what they did so far this offseason with rumors that they're not done yet has a lot to do with the crosstown rival really trying to steal the headline, steal the players, and be the best team in New York. Now, obviously, we know the history and how much work the Mets have to do to get there, but I really believe that this is the best thing that's happened for not just the Mets, but the Yankees as well.
Absolutely, and I really don't think that the Yankees signed Carlos Rodon without the spending spree by the Mets, because the Yankees didn't need pitching, but they saw there was one last elite player out on the free agent market when they thought Carlos Correa was still a San Francisco Giant. Well, he was there for 6 days longer than Aaron Judge was. So he was really the last really elite player that was available, and Hal Steinbrenner jumped on it and gave the Yankees, which I think arguably is the strongest rotation in baseball right now. So there wasn't really a need for the Yankees. Again, I think many people felt very comfortable going into the season with Cole, Severino, and Cortez as your one through three. But now that you add Rodon, who's basically, I don't know if I would call him an ace, but I would call him the closest thing that you have to an ace, and 1A, if you will. So now that you bumped Cortez, who was amazing last year, and Severino, who finally seemed to got over the injury bug, as your number 4 starter, the 3 and 4 now. Man, that's a really, really strong rotation come October. So I still think they need to, again, Hal Steinbrenner said they're still looking to make moves, and I believe that's the case. And again, I don't think this really happens unless Steve Cohen is outspending the Yankees by $200 million right now. which
Yeah,
is
what a world.
if you're including the luxury tax, the Mets have spent their payroll for 2023 is like $510 million. I think the Yankees like 308.
It really is just a wild world, and you're seeing all these graphics pop up about how the Mets salary cap is more than 6 different teams combined at this point in time and whatever. And you know what? People can get mad, people can be frustrated. This is basically what Steve Cohen said was going to be his plan from the day he arrived. He didn't do it right away because he knew that it wasn't the smartest way to go about it. Again, we need to be reminded that this man is in the position he is because he's been smarter than 99% of people that he's ever encountered, if not more, right? If not 99.9%. He has been out thinking the game that he's playing, whether it be business or now being an owner of a baseball team, for a long time. And that does not mean that these are home run hits. That does not mean that they're guaranteed anything. But he basically said his plan was to put out a World Series team in 5 years, to win a World Series in 5 years. And he knows that if that's going to come true, he needed to make things happen right freaking now. On the Yankees front, it's basically the opposite. They've been content from a front office and ownership standpoint, being very good without the urgency to become great and a World Series contender or whatever you want to call it, because they've been knocking at the door for years now. Now, both of these teams lining up next to each other saying, yo, we're going for this. Let's freaking go for this. It is a special moment. And fans, I don't know if fans, Drew, know how to handle this, because I've seen Yankee fans trying to crap on what the Mets are doing. I've seen Mets fans trying to crap on Aaron Judge being named captain because we all knew it was coming, right? Like, I'm seeing all this beautiful animosity, and I want to use the word beautiful because it is beautiful. And I don't know if fans know what to do with their hands right now, Drew. This is impossible in other sports for the most part because of salary cap restrictions and et cetera. You can argue like the Rams, for example, just trading all their picks and going over the cap or as much as they possibly can, whatever. Possible. Basketball, you can go over the cap a little bit with certain bird rights and et cetera, but nothing like this, Drew. I don't think fans understand exactly what's happening and what to do with themselves right now.
Yeah, it's a really unprecedented situation, and Steve Cohen, again, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And there's like a lot of talk out there that that he's just okay with losing all this money, and the Mets are just going to hemorrhage all these dollars because they're paying $110 million in the look track. Okay, even if that's true, that Steve Cohen is fine with, he's worth, $25 billion or whatever his net worth is. It's like, whatever, it's like 0.05% of his net worth that he's spending on like the payroll of the Mets. That's just one thing. But Steve Cohen, he's never in the business to lose money. So I think it's kind of the perfect storm that you were kind of alluding to before of the opportunity in front of him. I think he wanted to see it, he wanted to see how the team did the last couple of years, just to kind of get like a base around him before he really dove into the pool. But because of I don't want to turn this into an economics podcast here, but because interest rates and the financial situation that this country is going through now, where one could take advantage of the time asset of money, time value of money over time here, he could basically take out a bond for $285 million or $260 million and basically pay off that Correa contract in 5-6 years and make his money back, because we're in this unprecedented time. Interest rates right now are probably 3, 4, 5%. Historically, the last 2 years we were at like 0.5%, 1.1%. So Steve Cohen, if he wanted to make back his money, 2 years ago, if he wanted to make back the Correa contract, you basically have to put down like $305 million to make that $315 million back. And that just doesn't make any financial sense. So he's doing fine. He's doing fine. He's not losing money. At least if he's as smart as everyone thinks he is, and he's a finance guy. So that's really Uncle Steve just kind of taking advantage of this unprecedented market of marquee free agents, and with a combination of just his financial smarts at the same exact time.
Yeah, and it's a great point by you, and that insight is something that no normal people really would think of, right? And
No.
to add on top of it, from a more simplistic perspective, these leagues are making more money, and these leagues are getting more revenue because of whatever the reason you want to say, because they're doing well and they're making more money, sure, because of inflation, because numbers are just going up, sure, whatever it is, doesn't matter. There is reason to believe that all teams are going to have higher payrolls in 5 to 10 years. You can't say the cap's going up like you can in basketball, because that's more of a concrete number, but numbers are just going up in general. And it's also important to note, yes, their two top pitchers right now, or at least for the time being, are 38 and 40 years old in Scherzer and Verlander, or 39, whatever age Scherzer is. Their contracts are only on the books for 1 to 2 more years. So that's 30% of the cap right now. That doesn't include the updated number with Correa's contract in there. That's from Spot Rack right now. It hasn't refreshed yet, but let's just say 25% of the cap, or of the payroll right now, is to those two pitchers. Those numbers come off the books, and it's not like they've hemorrhaged any future assets to do this just yet. They do still have a number of prospects who they expect to build into MLB players. And those things combined really makes the idea of refreshing the books in a couple years, if things go haywire, a strong possibility. And that goes back to your point, Drew. This guy is not in the business of losing money. He's not burning this stuff down. If you don't think that he and his team are thinking of all the negatives that can come out of this, or
he's not hedging his bets in some way, that
right.
Even if interest rates do dip back down, that he's hedging his bets the other way, where he's not losing money. There's no way that Steve Cohen is losing hundreds of millions of dollars in this. If he's losing anything, it's very little, to say the least. So and this isn't a new concept to anybody. And I think anyone who's able, oh yeah, I don't think it's a time value of money is not a new concept that these billionaires who own, they become billionaires for a reason. Every single owner of a baseball franchise is a billionaire in some capacity. So they're all smart. And I think you've been able to see this around the league. You're seeing all these 11-year contracts for Trey Turner. You're seeing Bogarts get an 11-year deal, because these guys understand that this is, you're in a unique situation where you'll be able to make your money back pretty easily. And again, teams have I want to say dozens of employees that have nothing to do with baseball operations, that are just finance guys that are able to, move the books around and, basically make these guys foolproof.
And frankly, too, not just for the Mets, but for the Yankees as well.
Yeah.
Some of these contracts that are between 6 and 11 years or 12 years, whatever it is, in 6 years, in 8 years, we don't know what the mean salary is going to be for a superstar, right? There's a world where the next guy who's going to be 28, who isn't even in the majors yet, who's hitting free agency for the first time in 2030, right? Like some guy who we've never heard of yet, who bursts on the scene and is a superstar, whatever. His average annual value might be 75 million, right? Like that's not a ridiculous thing to say. If you even look at some of the other sports, like basketball has been banking on this to a fault in some regards, but in other places, some teams are doing it really well. It's like, Jalen Brunson, 22 million feels like a lot. Guess what? If the cap goes up like they're projecting it to in 2 years, that's all of a sudden a bargain deal. So that's the same concept here with a lot of these baseball contracts. You're thinking about what's Correa's average annual value? Like 30?
No, it's not, because it's a 12-year deal. It's like $26.5 million, which is nothing. John Carlos Stanton, when he signed his deal, which was an unprecedented amount of money, he was only making 27, 28, 29. It's something in the high 20s for an average annual value. And then Aaron Judge just blew him out of the water. These 9 years, $40 million.
And in some ways, that's a way of betting on the future of the sport and the economy and et cetera. And that could be a benefit down the road. Patrick Mahomes, another example in football, to go cross sport here. He signed this unprecedented 10-year deal as a quarterback. There's a stronger chance of the Chiefs saying, hey, 5 years into this deal, let's restructure it and get your average annual value up to $58 million a year. Because right now we're paying nothing for you at 32 or whatever the hell he's got right now. So all these things become a factor here. And I think you can't dismiss that when you're thinking about teams possibly ruining themselves for the future. I don't think that's the case for the Mets or the Yankees. And obviously there is a problem that the Rays of the world have no capability or no willingness to do something like this. But guess what? That's how the sport is set up. Why would you not take advantage of it if you have the opportunity to?
And even if baseball had a salary floor, let's say, because the players wouldn't accept a salary floor less than like $130 million. Bob Nutting and Steve of the Pirates and Stu Sternberg of the Tampa Bay Rays aren't raising their payrolls to 140, $150 million to meet that floor. There's no way. There's no way that they would do that. So the Mets and the Yankees and these teams are, that by spending all this money, it's not going to prevent that. It's not going to force these guys to spend because they were never going to spend. So, and the other point is that baseball, again, has the most parity out of every single major sport in the country. It's the most parity out of every single team, and you don't have a salary cap. So even these smaller teams, you see the Rays are still competitive because they have to be smarter, and you're able to figure out there's more than one way to build a team. And just because you spend $800 million on free agents in an offseason does not guarantee that you're going to win the World Series. And it helps. It certainly does help to spend money on players, to be able to sign Carlos Correa at 2:00 in the morning and be able to bring him in and bring him to have him play third base and do a modern day A-Rod Jeter type of thing, except in this case, the lesser shortstop is actually moving over to third base, unlike when Jeter forced A-Rod, the Gold Glove shortstop, to move over to third base. That's besides the point. But again, spending this money doesn't guarantee that the Mets are going to win the World Series. I mean, you would like to think that it would, that at least guarantees them to make a deep playoff run, but as we've seen, the playoffs are really a crapshoot, and it's just about really putting yourself in the best position to make that deep run and to be able to say we're going all in. We're giving ourselves the best chance to win a World Series. Again, nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed in this life, and nothing's guaranteed in baseball. But the Mets are giving themselves the literal best chance to win a World Series by spending all this money.
Yep, and that brings us perfectly to talk about the actual teams as the Mets and Yankees lineups projections can start being looked at. The pitching rotations can start being looked at. And right now, as of Wednesday night, 10 p.m., December 21st, the World Series odds have changed a little bit. The Mets went from plus 1,000 to plus 750. That puts them at tied for third with the best odds to win the World Series. Right now, according to DraftKings, Houston Astros still the favorite at plus 600. Yankees plus 700, Mets and Dodgers plus 750, with the Padres and Braves not too far behind at plus 1,000. So like you said, Drew, there ain't no guarantees. This isn't even making them the favorite. It's making them one of the favorites, which they probably were already before this move. So with all that being said, what is your take on Carlos Correa, the player? Because that, in all the hype and the excitement around this signing, where Mets fans were freaking out of excitement, some other fans were freaking out because of jealousy, perhaps. It's not like Carlos Correa is the best player in baseball. It's not like he was even the best shortstop on the market this year. So who is Carlos Correa, the player? And, what are you looking at as far as this Mets lineup now with some of the additions they've made this year?
You're talking about, again, he might not have been the best shortstop. He was the second best shortstop. I think I'm very comfortable in saying behind Trey Turner on the market right now. But yeah, he put up 22 home runs last year. He had 366 on base percentage. He played Gold Glove caliber defense, which I think he'll be able to transition. Again, third base is a different transition because it's different angles, but he's very athletic. He's I don't think it should be, there's a reason why he went first overall pick in the draft. He's a specimen of a human being, super athletic, 28 years old, in the prime of his career, makes a lot of contact, doesn't strike out a lot. It's a perfect number 2 hitter behind Nimmo, and a sandwich between Nimmo and Lindor. So, I wouldn't expect, 30 home runs out of him. I'd probably go in the mid 20s. And I think that's okay. I think now with with Alonso there, and you have a full season of Vogel back, and you have the possibility of Alvarez and Beatty coming up and be able to contribute that way, which is I don't think people are talking enough about. Having 2 top 15 prospects in the game basically knocking at the door and ready to, supplement those kind of pieces that I feel like the Mets have kind of grown beyond at this point. But the Carlos Correa of it all is he's exactly the type of player that that you want to finish off not someone that you would build around. And I feel like that's part of the reason why San Francisco all of a sudden found issues with his medicals, because from everything that was communicated by his agent, by sources, that there was nothing really wrong with it. And he was at the press conference in San Francisco, literally dressed, ready, about to go on stage. And at the last second, they cut they cut it short to look things over. And if Met fans are kind of worried about his back situation or anything like that, the Minnesota Twins, the team he was on last year, they know his medicals better than anybody, because they had him for a full year, so they felt comfortable giving him offering him a 10+ year deal. So if that team who knows him better than anybody else was comfortable in doing that, then I don't think that the Mets, Met fans have to worry about Carlos Correa being some kind of pumpkin that he's going to be hurt the second he shows up. So I think that's a little bit overblown if you want my opinion about it.
Yeah, I think the point you make about him being a finishing piece is really important, right? Because if you're building him in as your number 1 guy, maybe you're not looking at a great team, right? If he's got to do it himself, as any player in this league, maybe outside of Aaron Judge, cannot do, he's one of them, right? He can't carry a team by himself. And with this lineup, he most likely will not have to. And now we're talking about a lineup where I texted you guys earlier today. It was really hard for me to wrap my head around it in the moment. I had to literally write the lineup out myself and look at what people were saying on Twitter to just wrap my head around it. And now that Jeff McNeil, the batting title champion from last year, is still in this lineup. Nimmo is still in this lineup. Marte is still there. You now have a deep lineup with power, which was a problem last year. That was probably the biggest problem. Another guy who can hit 20, 25 home runs. This looks like a complete lineup now. And it wasn't because he's going to slot into your 3-hole and be the best hitter on the team, but it's because he can be the best hitter on the team for a couple weeks. He can be the 3rd best hitter on this team for the entire year, right? And that's a huge differentiation that you cleared up very nicely. He's not the number 1, and he doesn't have to be here in New York. And that's absolutely huge, that you can think about if Alvarez works out, if Beatty works out, they can be the 7th most important hitter on this team, which is a luxury that, Mets fans are so frankly just still not used to.
Yeah. And that, I think that's only, that's only going to help the kids, because, Alvarez at the end of last year, he was kind of looked as the savior to the Mets lineup, who were struggling to find power. Like, oh, Alvarez is going to come up. He's going to, hopefully he does a 2016 Gary Sanchez impression and just goes on a tear. But obviously, kids, Aaron Judge struggled when he first came up to the big leagues. Mike Trout first, struggled when he came up to the big leagues. I think, not having to, depend on your number 1 overall prospect in baseball and pressure him into thinking he has to contribute right away and kind of get his footing in, AAA and a couple more at bats. And then when he's ready, maybe in a couple months of the season or midway through the season, then you can bring him up, and then he can be your DH and catch sometimes and, be that force. And that just only adds to the depth that the Mets have. That'll give them, if him and Beatty work out, that's 8 above average hitters in that lineup, with Narvaez taking over the catching duties for McCann, who I definitely think is on his way out as well.
Yeah, it looks like Nito and Navarez are going to be the two catchers if Alvarez isn't slotted in there off the jump. And yeah, it's a special moment, right? Like Mark Canha, a professional hitter, might be the odd man out because of the depth that surrounds him on this roster, right? Like he can be a platoon outfielder at some point of the season because there's so many other pieces that are great options, which is really unique, I guess, at this point in time because Canha, would slot in as a starter and basically what 85% of lineups if he was on any team in the league.
Absolutely. And he had a better on base percentage than Correa did last year and about the same number of bats. So like he's no slouch that like you're taking out of the lineup here. He's just like doesn't have a ton of power, but he gets on base. He's a very useful player to have on a team with World Series aspirations. And it's just about building depth here that you could be able to not have to ride Vogelback and Canha into the ground, that you can sub different guys in and still have a very good lineup day in and day out. And I feel like that's something the Mets were missing the last few years, is just overall depth and being able to, plug somebody. If they decide to hold on to Escobar is I don't think he was ever a starter. He was forced to be a starter last year, but now he's someone that you can sub in and just have just know that you're going to get a quality at bat and not just some backup player.
And he can play everywhere. That wasn't really even utilized last year because he was the everyday third baseman. Now he can actually play third, second, left, right, whatever he needs to do on a given night, which is huge luxury. So yeah, it feels good right now as a Mets fan. It really does. Before we move on to the Yankees and talk about them, obviously, I don't know if we didn't talk about Senga really here on the podcast. Have we? So the Mets rotation still not, number one in the league. That might be the crosstown Yankees, obviously. But with Verlander and Scherzer, you expect at least a pretty high floor of regular season pitching. The playoffs are going to be a whole nother animal, of course, for every team, and definitely the Mets. But Senga slots in with the opportunity to be special. What is your take here on Kodai?
Kodai, probably the best Japanese pitching prospect to come out of that league since probably Tanaka. Has an incredible breaking ball slider, and he could pump up his fastball up to 100, 101, and he makes it is a pretty free and easy delivery. Again, I think the contract that he was given pretty high priced. I would he doesn't have to step in and be an ace. And especially with Verlander and Scherzer being up there, as long as he's able to eat some innings and get acquainted to Major League pitching, I think he'll be a perfect, number 3 middle rotation type of starter. And speaking more of Verlander and Scherzer, I don't think the plan, Verlander threw 175 innings last year. Scherzer threw like 150. I think if I'm going to take an over-under on how many combined starts, if let's say the over-under is like 50, 52 and a half, I think I'll take the under between the two of them. And I think that'll be on purpose. I'm not saying that either of them are going to break down, but I think that they kind of learned their lesson from last year, where Scherzer wasn't, even though he was hurt for a little bit of last year, that you want those guys being as fresh as humanly possible going into the postseason. And again, they're in the upper age. They're still elite. They're still both, elite starters. So I think you're going to purposely see them kind of hold them back as much as, Buck Showalter can during the regular season, to make sure that, you have your two horses ready to go in October. And, we talked about last time about the bullpen as well. And the Mets brought in David Robertson, a favorite of mine. They re-signed Ottavino. They traded for Brooks Raley. So they've kind of rebuilt the bullpen a little bit. It was unfortunate that Seth Lugo went, but, I think he wants to try out and be a starter in San Diego. Trevor May, I think I'm pretty okay with him leaving if I'm a Mets fan as well. So they've rebuilt the bullpen. They were able to rebuild the starting rotation. They rebuilt the lineup, and again, I don't think it makes them the absolute favorite in the entire league, but I think it makes them, very easily in the conversation, one of the best teams in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, again, feels really good, and this is a good segue opportunity to kind of start talking about the Yankees a little bit too. What was your read really today from fellow Yankee fans, Drew, about what happened with the Mets this morning, or overnight, if you will, and then on to the Yankees' big day, big announcement of making Aaron Judge captain, obviously signing Rodon just a couple days ago. What was your reaction, or what did you see out of other Yankee fans reacting to try to comprehend what the Mets just did while still trying to enjoy Aaron Judge? Did you sense animosity? Did you sense jealousy? Did you sense that they don't care? Like, what was your read on how Yankee fans took in this entire situation?
I think, well, how I took it is that, I'm excited for, someone to actually go all, because again, as we've talked about, the Yankees are, the complacency in that franchise has been an issue over the last couple of years. But to see, it was kind of refreshing, at least in my perspective, to see a team just go all in on that, and make those kind of moves that you were kind of used to the Yankees doing. So I saw it from what I've seen from Yankees fan. I saw animosity, but not towards the Mets, but more towards Hal Steinbrenner. That yes, he did sign Rodon, and yes, he did. I don't think he should get much credit for re-signing Aaron Judge and Anthony Rizzo and kind of keeping the team status quo. Because you still, you want to compare left sides of the infield right now. You have Carlos Correa and Francisco Lindor in Queens, and then over here you have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and Josh Donaldson. So there's animosity there from Yankees fans, but it's not towards, the Mets or, I feel like the Yankees fans are, they're I won't even say they're happy, but they're, they just want to. I personally felt just like I want to be able to have that. I want to be able to have that feeling of knowing that like my owner actually gives a shit and he wants to win. And even during the press conference today, Hal Steinbrenner didn't exact, like he said the tried to be loud, bumper says saying we still have, we did all the right moves and we still have stuff to do. But then at the same time, when he was pressed to talk about Steve Cohen and the Mets, he basically shut down I think the quote was, "I don't think it's good that before teams can show up in spring training that they're not going to be able to have a chance to contend the playoffs." Like Steve Cohen has nothing to do with the Pirates not spending. The Pirates are never going to spend in any type of financial environment, and the Rays were never going to spend on any. And the Rays figure it out. So that's all just a bunch of bullshit to me. And
Right.
I hope that I'm proved wrong, that they go out and they're able to address the offense, because again, they're worse on paper than they are at the end of last year. That they have no Benintendi. Um, DJ LeMahieu's health is in question, and Aaron Judge is not hitting 62 home runs again, and Matt Carpenter, who now left for San Diego, he's not going to be. There's no one there that's going to be doing a 2004 Barry Bonds impression for 200 plate appearances. So like, the offense is worse on paper right now. So they increase a strength that they have, but as we saw last year in the postseason, pitching was never the Yankees' issue. It was them scoring runs,
Right.
and just counting on a bounce back from Josh Donaldson, and counting on on one of your young shortstops who you just weren't confident in last year to just step in and do the job. It's risky, to say
Right.
the least, when you could have just went out and gave Carlos Correa that deal and gave a lot more certainty to your lineup. But yeah. To answer your question, it's a whole mixture of emotions
Yeah.
that's going to take some time for me to sit and stew in before, until they actually make a move.
And I think the lens that you're coming from is a little bit more rational and a little bit more baseball fan than Yankee fan, right? Like there's definitely more Yankee fans out there who don't care about the big picture of baseball and they only care about the Yankees, right? Some of the stuff that I saw from friends and group chats and et cetera, and people on Twitter was a little bit more negative than kind of you're describing here. And it was kind of like, oh, the Mets are still irrelevant until they freaking do something. I don't care, right? Like you do get some of that from Yankees fans. And I think that's a natural reaction. It's kind of like holding on to what you know or what you feel like should be the truth. All right. But then on the Hal Steinbrenner front, it did feel a little cop-outy to say something like that, right? It's a little bit of a hedge. Like, oh, if we don't win, it's not really our fault. It's because this freaking guy over here is just spending money like a crazy person, right? Like that feels like a little bit of a hedge. Like you're kind of trying to say, oh, we're going to compete and we're doing everything that we could be doing. But yeah, I don't want to compare myself to this other crazy stuff going on over here, which got to sting a little bit for some Yankee fans. And I get that. And then obviously some of that just gets turned into a little bit of vitriol, right? Like, oh, you Mets, like you think you guys are special. You're still going to freaking lose in the first round. Like, who cares, right? And I'm starting to reach the point where I don't want to hear that from most Yankee fans because your team isn't much different right now, right? Like your team is making it to the playoffs every year and not really doing anything with it. So not that the Mets are either, but let's not pretend like your team is some sort of special thing right now when in reality, you know, part of the only reason that your team is going for it in certain regards is because of the pressure they're feeling from Steve Cohen and the Mets. So I think that your reaction is incredibly rational and baseball fan friendly, right? Because you love the game of baseball and want it to be exciting overall. True Yankee fans who only care about the Yankees, I think, have a little bit more negativity in their hearts right now and don't want to hear all this fuss about a Mets team that's spending all this money with expectations because they don't believe that it's true. They don't believe that it's going to matter.
No, I get that, and you know, and in my Yankee fan heart, I'm not mad at the Mets. I'm not mad at Steve Cohen. I'm mad at ownership. I'm mad at the complacency. If that's it, and if Yankee fans are out there mad at Steve Cohen, I don't think that you're directing your anger in the correct direction. You should be You should be booing Hal Steinbrenner,
or it's just jealousy, basically.
Yeah, there's also possible. Also very possible.
And now on like the young guy of it all, because that's really important, really, really important here. If 2 of the 4 big time hitting prospects of the Yankees end up working out, that'd be Volpe, Peraza, Cabrera, who we saw a bunch of last year, and Dominguez. Like 2 of those guys come up and are real players. All this crap about, you know, not getting Trey Turner, Dansby Swanson, Carlos Correa, Xander Bogaerts, etc., doesn't really matter as much, right? Like, so there is a chance that the offense can get that natural bump from what they have in house right now.
And it just on the double-edged side of that sword, my friend, is that you're now putting unrealistic and in my opinion, unfair expectations on Anthony Volpe now or Peraza to become above average big league players. You know, I said in the group chat, if they don't turn into superstars, that it's a massive failure. But I think most Yankee fans would settle for Volpe and Peraza just to be above average players, where you can now say, okay, you can somewhat justify them not dipping their toes into 2 off seasons now of like multiple elite shortstops being available for just money. So you're really putting pressures on, you know, these 21, 22-year-old kids to pan out, because if you don't, the next actual free agent shortstop, I think, is like Bo Bichette, and he doesn't become a free agent until like 2026. So you potentially, if the Yankees really lay a goose egg here, you're going to be dealing with stopgap shortstops until, you know, for the foreseeable future. So it doesn't feel, you know, they have to be, maybe that says something about their confidence in those guys' abilities, but they have to be really sure that those guys are going to be the guys. If not, then, you know, they're going to be in real trouble, and they're going to look really foolish about, you know, not just flexing their financial might, because again, the Mets are outspending the Yankees by $200 million. $200 million, and the Yankees' revenue was, you know, according to Forbes, was more than double than what the Mets, and that's just baseball revenue on paper. That's merchandise, that's ticket sales, that's hot dog sales, and that doesn't account for any of the other outside real estate deals, any of the other the BAMTech sale that they got from Disney, where each team got like $60 million. It doesn't account for any of that. So the Yankees just not choosing to flex their financial, might just could really come back and bite them in the ass, sooner than later.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it comes down to, right? Because it is multiple years now of what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of them not sending it. Full send has not been in the vocabulary of the New York Yankees front office. I do think they staved off a lot of the fan hate with the Judge stuff and the Rodon stuff and whatever else they may do. But there could be another point where, if Stanton's banged up and missing time and Judge has the offense on his back, where that frustration is going to come out again. And it's going to say, yo, Sevy, Cole, Nestor, Rodon, all pitching their asses off for this team to score 2.5 to 4 runs a game, right? Like that is a possibility, and that would really, really suck. Honestly, like there's no other way to say it. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, last thing that I want to talk about, and then anything else you want to get to. Judge named captain, 100% deserves his flowers. It's a beautiful thing. Something that I think could have been, done a while ago. Obviously, locking in this long contract was important for the Yankees to commit to making him a captain. Maybe they wouldn't have dealt with all this crap this offseason if he was the captain already. But what is your reaction to the next captain, which is such a, fantasy lore spot, right? Right. It's such a big deal for Yankees fans and for Yankee brass to name someone a captain. So what is your reaction to that officially coming true and Judge being, what is it, the 16th captain?
16th, yes.
The 16th captain in New York Yankee history.
I really appreciated the picture of him and Jeter standing next to each other, and I tweeted out the GIF from that Tom Hanks movie. Look at me, I'm the captain now. And so the torch has been passed. Again, this is the closest that the Yankees had for Jeter, and the Steinbrenners do enjoy. They've milked the last teat of the 90s dynasty. This is me being very cynical here, so alert. They've milked the last teat of that 90s dynasty where they're retiring Paul O'Neill's number where it shouldn't have been retired. The last of those glory year guys. So, they kind of ensure that Aaron Judge, they'll be able to have ceremonies and retirement number ceremonies to get people in be able to milk that nostalgia for years to come. I'm not going to say he didn't deserve it because he certainly did. And he, putting up the season that he did last year and, everyone talking about how beloved he is in the clubhouse and how much of a leader he is and how he's kind of cut from the same Jeter cloth, it makes a ton of sense. I'm not going to be weeping about it or anything like that. It's nice. It's great. Ultimately it's not, him being the captain is more of a merchandising thing than a on the field production thing, because Aaron Judge is going to put up the same numbers whether he's the captain or whether he's or not. So it's nice, it's great, ultimately meaningless.
Right. And frankly, there are a bunch of Yankee fans who agree with you, who are happy about this and think that it should have happened. And, whatever you want to say about the timing of it, who cares? It happened. It's a good thing. However, it almost doesn't feel complete until there's a ring on his finger, right?
Yeah.
Like until the World Series follows Aaron Judge's Yankees tenure, then, the captain thing is just a nice little icing. It's a cherry. It's not really the cupcake, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there have been great Yankee captains. Like, again, Don Mattingly's my favorite player all time. Never won a championship. He was, still a great captain of the Yankees. But ultimately, Jeter had 4 championships when he was named captain in 2001. It's again, it's more of a marketing thing than a baseball thing. So again, I'm happy for him. Happy that his wife got some flowers. His mother got some flowers today. It was very nice moment, Jeter, to be there and to have their moment. But again, ultimately, it's about what happens on the field. Then I'll worry about legacy stuff in 9 years, hopefully with 2 or 3 championships underneath his belt.
Yes, of course. So, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up for me, Drew. I don't know if you have anything else to add on the Yankees front, Mets front, anything. This was a great episode that I appreciated. What else you got? Anything?
No, that's I think the Mets are basically done with it. They might add another bullpen arm here, maybe one more guy, and probably look to unload McCann and maybe Escobar. But I personally would hold on to Escobar as a bench bat utility type of guy. And if he wants to be a part of a winning team, I think he'll want to stay. If he wants more at bats or consistent playing time, then he'll go elsewhere. But I think it would be really beneficial for the Mets to hold on to him. McCann, not so much. So I expect the McCann trade and maybe another signing. But as far as the Yankees go, I really, they said they still have to address left field. Pie in the sky, Brian Reynolds, coming from Pittsburgh, but that's definitely going to cost you at least one of your shortstop prospects, plus like Jason Dominguez, plus other pieces.
Oof.
So I don't know if that's in the marks, or maybe you go and sign Michael Conforto, because it doesn't look like you're going to be able to deal Hicks or Donaldson. There's nobody who wants them, and that's not ultimately super surprising. So the offseason's not really 100%. You can't close the door on the offseason yet, and who knows? Uncle Steve could, he maybe go trade for Mike Trout next, or do something bananas, or maybe try to bid on Shohei Ohtani before he's even a free agent. Do something crazy.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. The off season for both these teams are around 80-85% done. There's finishing pieces, but all the major moves have been done. And I'm just excited for baseball season to get started. Only like 94 days until pitchers and catchers report.
Wow. That's crazy to me. That's crazy. It's always impossible for me to even wrap my head around football and basketball at the same time. Like, I finally hit a good stride with the NBA over the past like 2 weeks, and especially with the Knicks playing really well lately. And now it's like, our baseball's around the corner. It's like, come on, man. Goddamn. Giants are in a playoff run. The Jets are in a playoff run. The Knicks are playing well. The Nets are playing well. The Rangers, Drew, are playing better hockey.
They're playing great. They're playing great, man. They should have won last night against Pittsburgh, but they had a 7-game winning streak at the same time the Knicks did. So
yeah,
they're playing way better hockey now. They got the kid line going back up again. I'm very excited about that as well.
a lot of Pittsburgh mentions today. Yeah, a lot of Pittsburgh mentions. It's gonna be really cold there this weekend. Really cold. -4 degrees feels like is the projection for the game on Christmas Eve night. Raiders at Steelers.
Jesus.
That's our third Pittsburgh franchise being mentioned today. At least that one's not a poverty franchise like the Pirates, and obviously the Penguins aren't either. But all right, Drew, that's great stuff. I appreciate you very much, and what an episode! What a time to be a sports fan, as I say frequently. And now it's a great time to be a baseball fan as well, especially here in New York.
Yeah, man. If anything else happens, we'll jump back on and keep doing this.
That's what we do. All right, Subway Sports Talk. Pete Kennedy, Andrew Calagna, @_Swarles Barkley. Hit him on Twitter, because he actually tweets way more useful baseball stuff than I do, and half the baseball tweets from Subway Sports Talk are probably from him as well. So that's basically what you need to do to follow.
Check out those Instagram stories too, man. If you want some, if you're itching for content in the middle of the night while I'm feeding my daughter, like, tune in to SST. Something will probably be up there.
Something will happen. That's great. All right, Andrew Calagna, I'm Pete Kennedy. That's the way Sports Talk on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review on Apple Podcast app or Spotify, as well as subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube. Great stuff. We'll talk to you soon. NFL picks week 16 coming up probably Friday afternoon. So stay tuned for that. A lot of content for you guys this week. And I appreciate you all for tuning in as always. So we'll talk to you soon. Merry Christmas. Picks later in the week. Cheers.
See ya.